Greetings, this is DT with Interactive Homeschooling, and today we're going to discuss block scheduling and lesson planning. And to begin with, just to introduce for us our scheduling, we use a block scheduling approach. We use a 5-to-1 ratio, so that means that we school for 5 weeks on, and then we have 1 week off where there is no scheduled lesson plans. During that 1 week off, that is the time where I do all of my preparing, any of my cutting, laminating, printing that needs to be done for the next block of scheduling. We also use a staggered daily schedule, and that means that not all of my children are going to start their day at the same time. Some are going to start at one time, and then maybe an hour and a half later, another one will start. And we also have our schedule set where we school Monday through Thursday, and Friday is our more laid back day. It's a Friday fun day where they would just complete any types of tests or quizzes. We may do some life skill learning. Maybe it's cooking or crocheting or knitting or learn how to change a tire, whatever it is. We may do things of that nature, but typically it's just going to be a free day after that. So what are those things? Block scheduling is where, like I said earlier, where you have blocks of times that you are going to commit to learning. So again, that 5-week block, and then you have a break. Block scheduling also is structured so that you don't take the same classes each day. So we have fewer classes each day, but the classes are for a longer period of time. So we may have science one day, history a next day. We may have reading one day and writing a next day. It depends on however you choose to schedule it. But again, you have fewer classes each day, and again, the classes are more focused. What that means is that we're going to, again, like I said, have a much more intense study of that topic during that day, and there's less rotation. Each block is going to rotate topics unless there's something that needs to carry over. But generally what we do, because we teach the mastery with the block scheduling, they pretty much have a good grasp. And if there's anything else, then we just print review sheets and we use that review until we're 100% comfortable with them learning that topic that we were studying. Let's see, the staggered daily schedule. Again, like we said, we have them start at different times of the day, and there's different reasons as to why we choose the block scheduling and that staggered scheduling. As far as the block scheduling, what I like, or what we like most about it and why it works for us, is that it fits into our learning model, which is more, like we said, mastery approach. I like to have them study a topic instead of giving them bits and pieces of something. I like for them to make sure that they understand it and we fully address that topic. For an example, if your child is studying fractions, instead of 1 year telling them what a fraction is and how to write a fraction, and then another period of time how to compare fractions, and another time how to multiply them and divide them. For that mastery approach, if we're going to study fractions, we're going to start at the beginning of fractions, how to see them, how to draw them, how to write them, how to name them, and progress all the way through multiplying them, dividing them, comparing them. We're going to do the whole thing instead of breaking it up. So that fits our model of learning. It's easy for unit studies. Unit studies can be focused into a block scheduling rather easily, and we did lots and lots of unit studies when my children were younger. Still do some for certain subjects, but not the cross-curricular unit studies, not at this point in time, because again, the children are a little bit older and we kind of shifted away from that. It allows for better planning and easier planning, because with that week off, I'm only planning for what we're going to do for the next 5-week block. And that is a lot easier than me sitting down trying to think of what's happening for the year. I can put some really time and energy into looking at Pinterest, searching online for the resources that I need, looking up different labs or things that I would like to add, and I can have those things available and ready for that time period. So again, I do not prepare, even though I have an outline, a rough outline of what we're going to study for the year. I'm not going to look at the specifics of those things until that 1 week block. So it lets me focus that planning a lot better. It gives us all regular breaks, so there's less burnout for all of us. The children aren't feeling so tired of school, and I'm not feeling like I'm, not getting rest or not prepared for things because we have regular breaks. It helps with retention. They're not forgetting things because, again, we're using that mastery approach and studying things. And so we're not jumping all over the place, so they really get more retention um, of the information that's being taught, fits the year-round schedule, and it helps with family time. In previous years, we've been at this a long time, and for us, it's been trial and error, and you're going to have to do the same thing to see if this works for you or something else works for you. But I've tried different schedules where I use the weekends, the planned, or what have you, and what I found was that there was a lot of time that I was missing out. So maybe my husband wanted to go to the park and I just needed to get some things planned and ready before Monday morning. So I might stay home. So I missed out on those types of moments. And also there was a lot of spousal neglect. We get caught up. We're homeschool moms and we're busy and we have a lot to do. Yes, we're educating our children or whatsoever, but there was a lot of times where I just wasn't prepared because I might have been too busy on the weekend, or maybe I didn't have everything printed, so I was up doing all of these different things, and might not have cooked dinner for the hubby. And in the beginning, when I first started homeschooling, I'll be very honest, it was me learning my way, and I felt like, oh, you can do this if you needed to cook or whatsoever. But the reality is, there were things that we just need to learn that we can do, and so I learned how to better manage myself and manage that time. And it was actually easy to do once you were open to it. So I'm not neglecting my husband or not preparing all the things that I need to. This helps because my weekends are free and and it's very focused and pointed, and I can take care of all those obligations without feeling like I'm missing out or neglecting anyone in the process. Um, the staggered daily schedule, how and why that came to be, I have, again, trial and error, different schedules. I had to learn my children. And in learning my children, I have to realize that they are different ages, and they have different learning requirements based on that. So, um, some of them are going to be focusing on certain things and they're going to be able to do things independently. And there are some that are going to need me for certain things. Even though my son is in high school, yes, there's a lot that he can do on his own, but there's certain things that he needs assistance with. And we recognize which subjects our children need assistance with. Also, there's some things that he needs help with preparing and focusing for college. He wants to study for CLEP exams, and he's going to need some assistance with that. So the staggered schedule allows us to have time, individual time, where I can sit with just him and focus on those things. I have different learners. I have a very gifted child. I have bright children who just, pick up things but not gifted. And I have children that struggle with things, struggle to learn, and so they need a little bit more assistance and a little bit more repetition. And so the staggered schedule allows me to do that. So on the time that I need to focus with someone, be that they need that extra help, I can give that child that and not feel like I'm neglecting anyone along the way. But at the same time, I can foster a little bit of independence for those topics, because they each have things that they're okay with. And so I can give them that moment to be independent and do the subjects that they are strong with on their own when it's well prepared. And then I can work with children who need extra assistance at that time. So the staggered schedule helps me, to meet all of those different needs or requirements. When you are thinking about planning, there's certain things that you just have to consider, whether you are doing a block schedule or any other type of schedule. You need to, number one, understand what your state requirements and laws are. All of those are going to dictate to you what types of records that you have to keep. Maybe you need attendance records. Maybe you need have to do portfolio reviews once a year or every year. Maybe your child needs to come for standardized testing, or you need to submit lesson plans. Whatever it is that you have to do, you need to know that ahead of time before you begin any planning, because what you don't want is, in the time that you have to go for that review, is to come up with all of those things at the last minute. So look at those things and know what your expectations are for your state, because they are going to vary, so that you can have those things prepared in your initial planning stages. Your planning is going to be different based on the number of children that you have, and also your child's learning styles and their capabilities. One thing to not get caught up in, even if you see a plan, if my plan looks good, it may not work for you, because you need to know your own children. Some people have children that are getting done in 3 hours. They may not have the same number of children that we have, or they may have children that are a lot more independent in their learning or stronger in their learning capabilities. So keep in mind what is going to work for your child and what their needs are before you make the decision on what type of plan that you want to use. You need to also know your own personal philosophy. We all vary in our educational philosophies. Some of us are going to lean towards our children being a lot more independent. Some of us are going to lean towards to less planning and allowing children to direct their learning. Some of us are going to feel like our children should be led. We want to be guiders, and vice versa. So it's going to depend on what your philosophy is, because at the end of the day, regardless of what looks good or sounds good or what I believe, if it's not in alignment with what your philosophy is, you are going to be the one in your home who is always going to feel in conflict with your day, and your schedule is not going to work just because you see something and you want to try to do that. So you need to understand who you are, what your standards are, and what your philosophy is, and make your plan according to what it is that is going to fit that for yourself. You need to look at extracurricular activities. Are your children in Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or 4-H and things of that? When do they meet? There homeschool groups available for these, because you can find homeschool 4-H groups that meet during the day, and then there are some things that meet only in the evening or the weekends. All of that is going to have an impact on your schedule, and you want to look at those things and discuss with your children what they're interested in and what are the possible meeting groups and times ahead of time. Look at co-ops. If you're going to be a part of a co-op, how often do they meet? What are the requirements of the co-op? Because they are all very different. Some of them will require you to go home and do some research or work that you're going to have to include into your daily schedule. Some of them are just, for fun. You're not going home with work that needs to be done, and you need to know that before you join. How often do they meet? How long is the day? Do I have to stay for the entire thing? You need to have all of that into your plans before you create that plan, because it's going to impact your day. You need to look at curriculum requirements. Some people are going to sign up for virtual schools or distance learning schools and things of that nature. If you're going to do that, it is going to seriously impact your day. So you need to know how many assignments do they require your child submit every single week, the timing of it, how much needs to be completed each year. You need to be able to consider all of those things so that you can have that into your schedule so that you can meet those other obligations and requirements as well. Let's see, looking at learning resources when you're planning or beginning to make any type of plan, you want to know what type of resources that you have. You want to have those resources organized in a way that you may find them at that time for planning. Okay. So things that you have to consider when it comes to resources is you're going to consider your finances. Are you going to be able to afford box curriculum and things of that nature? Am I signing my child up for virtual school, but I need computers? Can I get that computer? Is it going to be made available? There are some virtual schools who will provide computers and resources and things for homeschooling parents that meet certain obligations or eligibility requirements. And you're going to need to know that before you, get in bed with these types of programs. Are you going to be creating things on your own? A lot of people think the do it yourself is just always the cheap route. It is not. You will spend a lot of money on different resources, and you need to plan for that. So if you're going to need laminating sheets and printing paper and ink, new printers, I can't tell you how many printers we go through, but things of that nature, you're going to have to consider that before you decide to make your plan on how you're going to go about it. You want to also make sure that your resources are available, because there is nothing like, and I've done it in the beginning, purchasing something that I already had, especially a virtual file that, oh, we're getting ready to do this and I already have this file. So you want to make sure that you are, number one, all of your things that you have in your home, organize them in a way where they are easily found by you and by your children. Your online files, you can store them. You can store files on your computer, but over the years, I can tell you that you are going to bog that computer down. It's not going to function quite well. So I do recommend that you learn and get really accustomed to using online storage spaces such as OneDrive, such as Google Drive or Dropbox. This will allow you to store files that you found, free resources that you just come across. You can store them in these online spaces and not, bog down your computer. When you set those files up, you want to make sure that you organize them in a way, again, that it is very easy to find. So for me, when I sit down for my planning, if it's time for us to study anatomy, physiology, and we're studying the circulatory system, I can go through my different online files and I will go to my science folder. And in that science folder, it's going to be broken down into physical science, life science, and things of that nature. Is going to be broken apart. I would go to my life science section, and then I'm going to find where my anatomy physiology is, and then I can find the circulatory system resources that I've saved in that spot. I can go into my home in a specific spot and find where all of my anatomy physiology resources are. And before, I had them all, grouped together, but kind of tucked away in boxes or things just for space purposes. But I've been able to just open up and create the shelving or buy the shelving that I need to make it more accessible. So everything's more out in the open now. So it's easier for me to find. So during lesson planning time, I can go to this shelf and pull what I need for the circulatory system. And I can go to my files again and make it more accessible, easier to find. So you're going to want to do that so you're not duplicating sources. And then you don't want to look for things that you already have. You don't want to purchase something when you already have something that works. So keep those things in mind. As far as making the plan and making your planner in itself, you want to always have different supplies, available. You're going to need lots of paper, ink, notebooks, printer paper dividers and tabs and laminating sheets. Have your notebooks, all of those resources available during that planning period. Highlighters I also use color coding because I have different children. So for certain things, I'm going to use color coding so that I can make sure that I know what's for what child. It's easier for us that way with the multiples, but you can again do things the way that you choose. As far as the planner in itself goes, my planner, I don't use a teacher planner anymore. When they were younger and we were doing a lot of unit studies, I used a teacher planner because it wasn't so bad. But as the children diversed and started to spread out on their topics and have gotten older, we don't do that anymore. So for the past, I want to say about 3 years, I've used more of a student planners, and that has all of their lesson plans per child in their planner. And I don't keep the planner. They keep the planner themselves. We review it. I go through it. We talk about it, but it is their planner. And they are responsible for making sure that they keep up with certain things. So I'll show you my son's planner, but let me explain why I do that. Number one, I have 4 children, so a teacher planner would be extremely bulky for me to keep all of the things and to meet all of the requirements to put in one. That's just too much. So a student planner, number one, allows me to separate that per child. There's no confusion about who has to do what. My children do not have any confusion about what it is that they are expected to do because everything is listed for them each day as what is expected. It allows them a bit of accountability. And it allows them to, at the same time, to kind of plan a little bit. If they want to do things a little bit differently, they can do that. They can look at it and say what needs to be done by the end of the week, and they make sure that that gets done. Because at the end of the day, I'm not looking to say, oh, you did this every single day. I basically look at it, at the end of the week, were you able to pull it together, and did we get it done, and did you learn what needed to be learned at the end of that week? So we look at it that way, and if they switch something and it works, hey, they can do that. So it gives them, again, that level of independent, learning, accountability, lets them learn and work on organizational skills, look at making plans for themselves, helps them with record keeping and learning how to manage and be accountable for their grades. And it makes it extremely easy for me at the time of portfolios. I can go to each one and pull out whatever I need to scan up for their digital portfolios that need to be made and sent off for their yearly evaluations. It makes it very convenient for me. So I'll show you my sons again, and we'll go over certain things that I include in the planner. Planners are going to be, again, focused and specific on what it is for you and what your state requirements are and what goals you have set and how you want to present it. So it can be very specific. For me, this works. So this is my oldest son's planner. Most of the planners, all of my children have one, and they're going to be mostly the same, but there are some elements that are going to be different. I'll explain those. All right, so they all, in the beginning, they're going to have, sheets of paper for them to write down or make notes of things that they just need to do or tasks that they need to complete. So they have that there. This first section is actually one of the sections that's going to be different. So I use dividers to separate the main topics, and I do use index tabs, to further organize things inside of each divider. So this first section is for my son who's in high school, and this is on his career path. So when he was in middle school, we sat down and we talked about what type of careers that he felt like he would be comfortable with or that he would enjoy as an adult. And so he is leaning towards more computer programming or computer engineering, technology, and things of that nature. So what we did was to go through a couple of colleges and print out the graduation requirements or expectations for these different degrees. We looked at some of the local areas, some of the state schools in the state and what they require. And we went through those together, and he and I sat down and looked at different ways or opportunities that he has to meet those requirements, whether they be him attending college or him taking CLEP exams or dual enrollment courses. But again, all of that was in our planning stage, and so this is in his planner so that he can look at the path that he needs to take in order to get into college. Or to get to graduate with that degree. He picked two, so those two are here, the two different degrees or possibilities. After that, he has CLEP exam information. So that's one thing that kids can do to get some college credits early, is to take CLEP exams and get those credits. So he has a list of the different CLEP exams that are offered at the community college and what the credits could be used for. And again, I just use separate index tabs to further classify. The next section into this college planning and prepping is dual enrollment information. So he has information on what is required to be admitted into our community college here as a dual enrollment student. And it lets him know what tests he has to take, when, and what scores he has to make in order to do so. The next section is on high school. I'm sorry, I'm watching my daughter dance in front of me. So the high school roads from high school to college. So he's in high school now. So what I put in the front is what a typical student entering, this states for a child entering ninth grade at in 2014 to 2015, what their graduation requirements are for our state. Now, as homeschoolers, do we necessarily have to follow these things? Absolutely not. But it's still good to give your child an idea of what a typical course study would look like for someone in high school, and gives them some guidelines. So that's there for him. After that is our high school plan. So I sat with him 7th grade, 8th grade, and we sat down together and looked at a plan for meeting his high school courses. Now, being a homeschooler, some of our children are going to take classes, high school courses early. So we added those at the bottom. So some in 8th grade, he took some science classes that were high school credit and counted towards high school credit early, and then added the rest. So these are the classes that he chose for 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th, and 12th. There are some blanks, of course, because he did decide he wants to enroll in dual enrollment during that period. So we left some space there. Now, this is specific. These plans are specific for the child and the degree that they may choose to go to. Now, they may not all choose to go to college, but the preparation is there, because what I don't want is for them to decide and I haven't sat with them, focused with them, and allowed them the opportunity. So we sat down, and these are the classes that he chose that meet graduation requirements, meet college admission requirements, and focus at the same time as much as possible on his career goals. And then from there, you'll have, this is our high school, his first year in 9th grade. And so this is a yearly plan and evaluation. So on that first sheet, we write down the classes that he's taken for 9th grade, and as he completes the semester, writing down all of the grades that he received. The next sheet, he has a reading log. And again, you have to know your state requirements. We have to have a reading log and curriculum log in the state of Florida. So it has information on the books that he read and the authors and pages, curriculum lists of all the curriculum that we use for the year. Community service records, and that helps for, there are certain scholarships that require community service and things, so those are going to be in there as well. Correspondence record, that's very important. You want to always keep a record of all the correspondence that you do, either with the school board or school or whatever you're doing. You want to make sure that you keep a record of that in case anything gets lost. And then from there, we add progress reports and report cards for that year. And so 9th grade, I'll add another sheet for the yearly evaluation and those same records for 9th grade for the next year, 10th grade. The next section is the calendar. And the very first page of the binder, or the calendar section, you'll see the white sections where we have our 5-week blocks of school, and the yellow section means that's our break time. So the children can see ahead of time and know exactly when their breaks are coming, know how long they have to complete that particular topic that we're studying. And it also lets us know when it's time for planning. When you have that written out, it lets you know exactly how many blocks of time that you're planning for. So for us, with this schedule of 5 weeks on and 1 week off, I have 9 blocks. So I have to plan for, and I only plan for one at a time, but we will cover 9 different topics or subjects for science or history or what have you in that way. After the first page, they have monthly planners that are double 2 pages, and they have this so that they can plug in any dates. Maybe, if they have scouting requirements, or maybe there's an online course or a college virtual tour that's going on that they can sign up for. They can plug all those in. Also, I use that section to go ahead and prepare them and let them know exactly what dates testing will occur. Your child may need to take the PSAT or the SAT, the ACT, or what have you. This allows you to go ahead and communicate that ahead of time and let them know when those dates are for those tests. Some states offer free standardized testing, and if you choose to go that route and want to have your child tested, if you don't want to pay for them yourself, I personally like to order and pay for my own and administer a different test. I don't personally use a state test. I don't like state specific tests. I like something that's a little bit more nationally standardized. But if you need to and you want to, you can, get with your school district, find out when those tests are being offered, if they're available to homeschoolers. But you want to know when. You need to sign up for them and let your child know when they will be taking place. So the calendars work for that type of communication for us. The next section is all the meat and potatoes of the planner. Okay, so this is our assignments tab. The first sheet, my child is going to have a list for their websites and passwords. I have 4 children, and I am not remembering all of their passwords, and they're going to change their passwords. I mean, especially the older they get, they're going to change them. So this is for them to keep up with their passwords for everything. And again, this is, like I said, meat and potatoes, the lesson planning pages. This is a set of free lesson plan pages that I printed out, and I've used this in the past a few times. Typically, though, honestly, I use Homeschool Tracker, and I can print everything that I need. I print schedules, I print lesson plans, and I'll show you the difference between those. But if you're someone and you want to have something that you write out, you can use something like this. It's separated by the days of the week and the different subjects or topics, has extra space for writing in weekend obligations and different notes. So you have those there. In the back, I have some of my son's older lesson plan sheets. Because I use Homeschool Tracker, what I would do is just print out what I needed for that 5-week block and stick it into that lesson plan slot. And so these are separated by subject, and it tells the child exactly what they need to do, and they can check off that they did it, and I can check and put grades there as well. So again, that's going to be a personal preference, what you choose, if you want to use a digital source or if you want to handwrite it. Now, some of the good thing about a digital source is that if you have 2 children doing the same thing, you can plug that in one time and it'll assign it to both children, and you can still print each child's plans separately, and it works great. So whatever you're comfortable with, that's what you need to use. And the last section inside of their planner is just a contact sheets for them to write down friends, phone numbers, emails, or what have you. They can put those there. So that's the planner that we use. On the back, the child have their schedule. So it lets them know on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day of the week, and what we're doing and how long that class is supposed to last. So that information is there, and they each have that. So that's their planner. My personal planner, again, based on my philosophy, and you have to know yourself, the way I view education is that it's just truly just an extension of my parenting. So I don't have it separate anymore, really. So it looks more like a home management binder with my homeschool stuff. Everything is there. So in mine, it's just going to be contact information for the district and for the state. I have, a running list of resources and websites for my local homeschooling organizations and that type of thing. I have my daily planner so that I'm scheduling. Maybe we have nature classes and things that are being offered. I'm going to put those things there and then put it out to the kids before they add it to their official planner. So that's pretty much how mine looks on the inside and what we include. Let's see. As far as the planning in itself goes with block scheduling, because like I said before, you're going to the first thing you're going to have to do is decide on your ratio. Do I want to school for 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 6 weeks on, 1 week off, 5 weeks on, 1 week off? You're going to need to make that decision for yourself. You're going to need to consider the number of days that you're schooling, with each of these different options. Am I meeting the requirements? Do I have enough school days to meet whatever requirements I have for my state if I have attendance. Does this block of time, is it enough for my child to learn what I want them to learn? Is this block too long? Am I losing my child's attention span with schooling, with us having a block this long? Those are all things that you're going to have to play with, and you have to figure out on your own. For us, a good 5-to-1 ratio is perfect. It's not too long, not too short. They learn what they need to learn, and we're not missing out on too much, and they're not getting too tired or burnt out with schooling. So this works for us. You need to count your blocks. So with a 5-to-1 ratio, we end up with 9 blocks. So that means what I do with my children is to include them. I include them with that planning. So they each get a piece of paper at the beginning of the school year, and I ask them, give me 9 science topics that you're interested in. Give me 9 history topics or things that you may be interested in. Give me 9 things that random things you want to learn. So they may tell me that they want to study, the random things. Someone may want to build computers. Someone may want to learn to sew. Someone wants to knit. Someone wants to cook. So, whatever it is, they can tell me that, and I can build those desires into the schedule, and there's less conflict and there's less pushback about, I don't want to do this. Well, because you chose it. They're more apt to kind of go along, and they kind of own it a little bit better. As far as like science, when they're younger, not my high schooler, it's not that way, but for the younger ones, they can pick random science topics. You may want to learn about volcanoes. Maybe you want to learn about magnets. Maybe you want to study earthquakes. Maybe it's electricity. Maybe it's the human body. Maybe you want to study birds. Whatever you want to do, we can build that into the schedule with the younger ones. Now, with the older children, high school level, I don't do that with him. And you can, if you choose to. It's all your personal preference. My philosophy is different, and I do follow along with a more traditional way of focusing on a unit of study. So it's biology, we're going to study biology. If it's physics, it's going to be physics. If it's chemistry, whatever it is, we focus on it that year. But we do break it down into blocks. So one block for biology may be cells, another one classification, another one ecology, anatomy, physiology. We can break it up, and then I can still do the same preparation and focus of getting the labs and things available for that topic, and looking for resources to make that topic fun and easier to learn, and make sure that they're learning what they need to. So you can still do that even with a high school focus. It's completely, again, up to you and what's going to be in agreement with you. When you're doing that, and after you've picked your topics, that's when you want to start gathering your resources. So like we said earlier, making sure you know where resources are and what resources you have available are going to be important, so that you're not purchasing them, and it cuts down on the time needed to really put it all together. So you can then sit down and write down a daily plan, a plan of what needs to be done. You can gather all your resources at that point. That's when you want to cut, and that's when you want to laminate and have everything organized after you've done all of the planning and gathering, and choosing what resources to incorporate. You will not incorporate everything. Pinterest is going to be great, and we bounce things off of each other on Facebook all the time, and it all looks good and it can all work, but you cannot include all of those things into your lesson plans. So you want to make sure you're not doing that. You can, however, have those things available for, if you do have a child that's a fast finisher, you can have those task cards and have different learning centers. Put those things together. But everything is not going to go into your plan. So you're going to have to pick and choose what you want to use, and then things that you want to have available for them. Okay. You also want to consider timing, weather, with what you choose to cover when. So if my child decides they want to study oceanography, and they want to study electricity, I'm going to choose to study oceanography during the summer months, and we'll study electricity during the wintertime when we're inside. So those types of things. So just be mindful of that as well. Consider your finances. Some things are going to be more expensive. You may need to save for. So if you want to buy a nice telescope and study astronomy, then you may want to put that someplace where you have time to gather those resources if need be. You want to Again, like we said, have everything together and organized before you begin the printing and putting together. Those fast finishers, like we said, task cards, learning centers, online games, arts and crafts centers, are things that they can move into once they've completed their daily tasks. Um, Mine also, when they're finished, we have daily chores to make sure that the house still runs smoothly. Each of them has a weekly chore that they're required to complete each day, and that keeps us going. And we all work as a family unit to make sure we can get those things done. We use color coding for everything, so it helps with accountability for us, and it works. So I know who left their blue pencils all over if they're getting lost, or I know who had different colored dishes or towels and all those different things. So it all kind of flows for us. And I can hold this individual accountable for what they didn't do, or their school supplies that are always getting lost, or what have you. So it all kind of helps to keep things running smoothly. Someone asked me one of the questions about how do we stay on task, and do we ever get on to tangents, and how do we meet our goals? Well, one thing about block scheduling is that you have built-in windows of opportunity to kind of get off task. So we have that Friday fun day. If somebody finds something that they want to get off onto a tangent with, Friday fun day is great. We also have a week off. So if you find something you want to jump into on that week off, then go ahead and knock yourself out. But this allows them to do those types of things, but still allows you as your plan to kind of keep going. Are there going to be times when you get off schedule? Yep. You just may, and that's perfectly fine too, but you have another block coming up. So if you want to adjust the next block, then you have the opportunity to do so, because you haven't already planned for it. You haven't invested resources in it, so you can manipulate that if you choose to. That's completely up to you. I tend to, again, try to have them use those. If you want to add something to those breaks or whatever, then you go right ahead and do that. Someone asked, how do I incorporate sewing and things into the schedule? I incorporate those by allowing them to choose different activities, and we can build them into the schedule. So there are extracurricular activities. If they want to sew or whatever, then it's home ec time. If they want to learn how to type, then we have computer classes, and we can change those from one block to the next, or they can extend through. It's completely up to them and their focus, or what their choices are. So those things are kind of built into it. Chores are built into our life. Again, school is not seen as some separate entity. It is seen as a extension of our daily obligations. So just same way we need to get up and brush our teeth and get dressed, we have to cook and clean. We have to learn something. So it's not seen as something that is just isolated. And I think in addressing it that way, it makes it easier for us to focus with, and to carry over. It, again, like I said, there is nothing perfect, and things get to be a mess and can be chaotic at certain times, especially if they decide to. My children are known for getting into something for science, and the day running longer. Maybe they are doing some knitting and crocheting, or they pulled out beads and they're everywhere. Those types of things run over in the day, and that's to be expected. And in the beginning, it bothered me, but it doesn't necessarily bother me anymore, because they're learning. So what I will do is to try and list, at the end of the video, get some resources where you can find different online planners and things for free. Planning resources that may not have been free, that have been helpful for us, that we've used. I will make sure to give a list of those. But again, I hope that helped. And if you have any questions, just leave it in the comments, and then I will get to those to answer. Thank you.